All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the internet's most critical yet kind of invisible pieces of infrastructure, the domain name system, or DNS. We're going to cover what it is, how you can take control of it, and even what to do when it's not cooperating.
You do it 100 times a day, right? You type in a web address, hit enter, and poof, a website appears. It feels instant, almost like magic. But in that tiny split second, there's a fascinating journey taking place behind the scenes. So let's follow that journey together. At its core, DNS is really just the internet's universal translator. See, we humans are good with names like cloudflare.com. Computers, on the other hand, they only speak in numbers, these long IP addresses. DNS is the system that bridges that gap. It's the phone book that looks up the name you type and finds the right number so your computer can make the call. Without it, browsing the web would be a total nightmare.
Okay, to really get a feel for how DNS works, we're going to trace a single request, what's called a DNS query, from the moment you hit enter all the way to its destination and back again. Now, on this journey, there are two main characters we need to meet. First, you've got the Recursive DNS server. This guy is the workhorse. It's the first stop for your request, and it does all the heavy lifting to hunt down the answer. Then, you had the Authoritative DNS server. This one is the source of truth. It's the server that holds the official final record for a specific website.
So here's how it all plays out, step by step. Your browser first asks the workhorse recursive server, hey, what's the IP for this website? Now, if that server doesn't already know, it starts asking for directions. First, it goes to a root server, which is like the main index for the entire internet. The root server says, I don't know, but you should ask the server in charge of .com addresses. So the recursive server goes to the TLD server, which then points it to the final destination, the domain's authoritative name server. That's the source of truth. It gives our workhorse the IP address, which it then carries all the way back to your browser. And just like that, the website starts to load.
Okay, so we know who's talking to whom, but what language are they actually speaking? It's not just about finding the right server, it's about asking for the right type of information. And that brings us to DNS records. These are basically the specific entries inside the phone book. They're the little lines of instruction that tell the recursive server exactly where to go and what to look for. So let's look at a few of the most common ones. The A record is the classic. It just points a domain name to a standard IPv4 address. The AAA record, Quad A, does the same thing but for the newer, more complex IPv6 addresses. A CNAME record is basically a forwarding address, telling traffic to go somewhere else. MX records are super important for making sure your emails get to the right inbox. And TXT records are like digital sticky notes that admins can use for things like proving they own a domain. So you might be thinking, this is cool, but why does it matter to me? Well, here's the kicker. That workhorse server we keep talking about, the one your computer asks first, you get to choose which one you use. That's right, this is probably the most important takeaway. By default, you use the DNS server your internet provider gives you, but you are absolutely not stuck with it. And changing it is one of the easiest ways you can potentially speed up your browsing, increase your privacy, and even make your connection more secure. And you've got some fantastic options. There's Cloudflare's 1.1.1.1, which is all about speed and privacy. You've probably heard of Google's 8.8.8. It's been a reliable choice for years. OpenDNS offers cool features like content filtering, and Quad 9 is laser-focused on blocking malicious websites. You can change these settings right on your computer or, even better, on your router so that every device in your home gets the upgrade. Now, for those of you who really like to tinker, you can take it a step further. You can actually run your own DNS server right in your house. Like this user on Reddit says, a tool called Pi-hole running on a tiny little Raspberry Pi can act as your own personal DNS resolver and block ads and malware for your entire network. It's a pretty powerful setup.
But, of course, technology isn't perfect. We've all been there. You go to a website and nothing. The call fails to connect. So let's talk about what happens when the phone book lookup just doesn't work.
Ah, yes, the classic DNS probe finished and X domain. It looks scary, but all it's really saying is, hey, I tried to look up this name in the phone book, but the entry doesn't exist. It's one of the most common errors you'll see on the web. So what's actually causing it? Well, most of the time, it's something simpler than you'd think. Maybe you just made a typo in the address, or, maybe you're not actually connected to the internet. Sometimes your computer is just clinging to old, outdated information in its memory, its cache. Or it could be a bigger issue, like your DNS provider having a problem, or the website itself having a configuration error. So what's a quick fix you can try? flushing your DNS cache. This basically tells your computer, hey, forget every address you think you know and start fresh. On Windows, you just open up the command prompt and type ipconfig/flushdns. On a Mac, it's a similar command in the terminal. Honestly, this simple step solves a surprising number of browsing problems.
So let's wrap it all up. DNS is this amazing, invisible engine that makes the internet human-friendly. And as we've seen, you have a real choice in how it works for you. Which brings us to a final thought. If DNS is the internet's phone book, who do you want answering the phone on your behalf? The default one from your provider, a public one focused on speed and privacy, or maybe even one that you control yourself? The choice is yours.